I found out my wife was cheating with my best friend, so I quietly planned the perfect revenge part 2. That night, I sat alone in my office until sunrise, drinking whiskey and reading every message they'd ever exchanged. Not because I needed confirmation anymore. Because pain becomes addictive eventually. You keep touching the wound, trying to understand how deep it goes. And somewhere around 4 a.m., I finally made the decision. No confrontation. No dramatic exposure. Not yet. First, I wanted truth visible. Complete truth. To everyone. Daniel helped structure everything carefully. Divorce filings prepared quietly. Asset protection secured. Evidence organized professionally. And meanwhile, another opportunity emerged unexpectedly. Ryan's investigation became public. A financial journalist released an article about irregularities at his investment firm. Nothing definitive yet, but enough to start reputational bleeding. Clients panicked instantly, and once wealthy people smell instability, they run. Ryan's business started collapsing in real time. That's when Emma truly began unraveling. Because suddenly her secret fantasy future with Ryan didn't look glamorous anymore. It looked dangerous. Messy. Embarrassing. One evening, I overheard her whispering furiously on the phone upstairs. "You said nobody would find out." Long silence. Then, "No, I'm serious, Ryan. This is getting bad." That conversation told me everything. The affair was no longer exciting. Now it was a liability. And watching that shift happen honestly changed how I viewed love forever. Because once pressure arrived, neither of them protected each other. They protected themselves. The final phase began 2 weeks before Christmas. I organized a dinner party. Small, elegant, close friends only. Including Ryan. Including Emma. And yes, I planned every second of it. Not for theatrical revenge. For clarity. I wanted masks removed. The night arrived cold and snowing lightly outside. Everyone laughed. Drank wine. Talked about holidays. Meanwhile, beneath the table, my marriage was already a corpse. Ryan looked awful. Dark circles. Shaking hands. Forced smiles. Emma barely touched her food. The pressure between them had become visible now. People noticed something was wrong. Good. Halfway through dinner, one friend casually asked Ryan about the investigation rumors. The room went quiet instantly. Ryan forced a smile. Mostly exaggerated nonsense. Then he looked at me, and for the first time in our entire friendship, I let him see it. Not rage. Not grief. Recognition. I knew. Completely. His face changed immediately. Tiny shift. But unmistakable. Panic. Real panic. Emma noticed too. And suddenly, all three of us sat there silently, understanding the exact same thing simultaneously. The lie was over. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then I raised my wine glass calmly and said, "To honesty." Emma nearly dropped hers. After everyone left, she confronted me immediately. "What was that tonight?" I took off my watch slowly. "What do you mean?" "You were acting strange." I looked directly at her. No, I was acting informed. Silence. Pure silence. And then I watched my wife realize her entire world had just ended. Color drained from her face instantly. She whispered, "How long?" "Long enough." She started crying immediately. Not delicate movie tears either. Panic tears. Fear tears. And then came the avalanche. "It didn't mean to happen. We never wanted to hurt you." I was confused. "I still love you." That last one almost made me angry again. Love. People really do use that word while setting fire to your life. I listened quietly while she unraveled. Then finally asked one question. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" She couldn't answer. Because the truth was obvious. No. They planned to continue until reality forced consequences onto them. Just like every coward does. Then came the question she was truly terrified to ask. How much do you know? I smiled slightly. Everything. And somewhere across the city, Ryan's phone probably started ringing at the exact same moment. Emma didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. She cried for hours at the kitchen table while I sat across from her feeling almost nothing anymore. That's what betrayal eventually does. At first, it destroys you emotionally. Then one day, the emotions burn out completely and leave behind something colder. Exhaustion. At around 3 a.m., she finally whispered, "Does Ryan know you found out?" Not yet. That terrified her more than yelling would've. Because calmness after betrayal feels unnatural, dangerous. "I ended it," she said quickly. Lie. I didn't even respond. Instead, I opened my phone and placed it on the table between us. A screenshot. Her message to Ryan from 3 days earlier. Greater than, "Once things settle down, we'll finally have a real chance." Emma stared at the screen like she'd been slapped. Then came silence again. Heavy silence. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't know how to stop." That sentence stayed with me for a long time afterward. Because it was probably the first honest thing she'd said all night. Affairs survive through momentum. Every lie creates another lie. Every secret creates another secret. Eventually, people stop making conscious moral decisions and start protecting the fantasy itself. Still didn't change what they did. But for the first time, I stopped seeing Emma as some evil mastermind. She was weak. Selfish. Cowardly. Emotionally dishonest. But weak more than cruel. Ryan was different. Ryan knew exactly what he was doing. At sunrise, I finally told her the marriage was over. No screaming, no threats. Just facts. I already hired an attorney. I said calmly. The divorce paperwork is prepared. That broke her completely. Because until that moment, some part of her still believed emotions could undo consequences. That tears might reverse reality. They can't. "What happens now?" she whispered. I stood slowly. "Now you deal with the life you created." Then I walked upstairs and locked the bedroom door behind me. Ryan called 27 times that day. 27. I ignored every single one. By evening, he started texting instead. Greater than, "Please talk to me." Greater than, "This isn't what you think." Greater than, "Emma told me everything." That one almost made me laugh. Everything. As if there were some magical context that transformed betrayal into misunderstanding. Finally, around midnight, another message appeared. Greater than, "You were my brother." That was the one that finally pushed me into replying. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing. Greater than, exactly. Then I blocked his number. The divorce process moved quickly after that. Probably because Emma knew fighting would expose too much publicly. And honestly, by then, she seemed emotionally shattered in ways I almost didn't expect. The affair fantasy had collapsed completely. Ryan's financial scandal worsened daily. Investigators froze several company accounts. Clients vanished. News articles spread online. And suddenly, the exciting secret romance became two disgraced people clinging to each other inside burning ruins. That's the thing nobody tells you about affairs. They thrive in stolen moments. Fantasy environments. Artificial intimacy. Real life kills them fast. Especially once shame enters the room. About 3 weeks after confrontation, Ryan showed up at my house drunk. Snow falling. Middle of the night. Absolutely destroyed. I almost didn't open the door. But curiosity won. He looked terrible. Not metaphorically, physically terrible. Unshaven. Bloodshot eyes. Hands shaking. And for one strange moment, I saw the version of him I used to love like family. Not the liar. Not the traitor. Just my friend. Which somehow hurt even worse. "I need you to listen," he said immediately. "No. Please. No." He started crying then. Actual crying. I messed everything up. I stared at him silently. Then he said the one thing I'll never forget. "I thought I could control it." There it was. The truth. Not love. Not passion. Not destiny. Control. Ryan genuinely believed he could manipulate every variable forever. His clients. His business, my marriage, Emma, me. People like him always think consequences are things that happen to other people, until suddenly, they don't. You should leave, I told him quietly, but instead he asked, did you report me? Interesting question. Not, did you tell Emma? Not, do you hate me? Did you report me? Because even now, survival mattered more than remorse. I smiled slightly. You destroyed your own life, Ryan. And honestly, that was true. I never submitted anonymous tips, never leaked documents, never contacted investigators. I didn't need to. Ryan's arrogance had already planted the bomb years earlier. I just stopped standing near it when it exploded. Emma moved into a small apartment downtown after the separation. We barely spoke outside legal conversations, and every interaction felt surreal. This person had once been my entire future. Now she sounded like a stranger, trying to imitate someone I used to know. One afternoon, she asked if we could meet for closure. I almost declined. But part of me needed to see her one final time outside lawyers and paperwork. We met at a quiet cafe near the river. She looked exhausted. Smaller somehow. Like guilt physically reduced her. I'm sorry, she said almost immediately. I nodded politely. Then she started crying again. Not dramatic, not manipulative, just grief. I ruined everything. Yes. That honesty seemed to shock her. People expect betrayed spouses to comfort them eventually. I didn't. Because accountability matters. Still, sitting there across from her, I realized something unexpected. I didn't hate her anymore. Hatred requires emotional energy. And mine was gone. What remained was sadness. For the marriage. For the friendship. For the version of my life that died without warning. Then she told me something I never saw coming. Ryan had proposed to her. Months earlier, while still secretly sleeping with her behind my back. I genuinely froze. Not because I cared romantically anymore. Because the depth of betrayal suddenly expanded into something almost unbelievable. He said he was going to tell you eventually, she whispered. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not happily. Just from pure disbelief. Eventually. That word echoed in my head for days afterward. Eventually. Cowards love eventual honesty because it allows them to postpone consequences indefinitely while pretending morality still exists somewhere in the future. Did you say yes? I asked quietly. Emma looked down. Yes. That should have hurt. Instead, it just made everything clearer. They hadn't stumbled into an affair accidentally. They'd built an entire future, using my life as temporary scaffolding. And somehow understanding that finally set me free emotionally. Because there was no saving something that broken. Ryan's arrest happened in February. Federal fraud charges, financial misconduct, wire fraud investigations. News spread everywhere. His face appeared online beside headlines using words like embezzlement, misappropriation, investigation. Watching it happen felt strange. Not satisfying exactly, just inevitable. Like finally seeing gravity work after someone spends years pretending they can fly. Former friends disappeared instantly. Professional contacts vanished. Even family members distanced themselves publicly. That's another thing betrayal teaches you. Most relationships are conditional. People stay close to success, to status, to comfort. Very few stay once collapse begins. Emma tried standing beside him initially. That lasted less than a month. Then she disappeared too. Apparently, investigators started examining communications connected to his financial activity, and she panicked about potential legal exposure. Romantic destiny ended very quickly once attorneys entered the conversation. Shocking. About 6 months after everything exploded, I finally sold the house. Our house. The place where birthdays happened. Christmas mornings. Movie nights. Plans for children we never ended up having. Packing it nearly destroyed me emotionally in ways the confrontation never did. Because objects remember things. Coffee mugs, picture frames, blankets. Every corner contained ghosts of a life I thought was permanent. I found an old photo buried in a drawer while packing the kitchen. Me, Emma, Ryan, beach trip years earlier. All smiling like the future belonged to us. I stared at it for a long time, then quietly threw it away. Not dramatically, just done. The strange thing about surviving betrayal is that healing isn't dramatic either. No magical breakthrough moment. No inspiring speech. Life simply continues. Slowly. Painfully. And eventually one morning you wake up realizing you didn't think about them immediately after opening your eyes. Then one day passes. Then two. And the wound stops bleeding even though the scar stays forever. About a year later, I ran into Emma accidentally at a grocery store. First time seeing her in months. She looked older. Not physically exactly. Emotionally. Like life had pressed down on her harder than expected. We stood there awkwardly near frozen foods for several seconds. Then she asked softly, "How are you?" Simple question. But loaded. Because what she really meant was, did I destroy you permanently? And honestly, for a while she almost did, but not anymore. I'm okay, I answered truthfully. Then after a pause, I added, I hope you are too. And I meant it. Not because forgiveness erases consequences, because carrying hatred forever gives the betrayal another victory. She started crying quietly right there in the aisle. I loved you, she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. Then finally said the truest thing I learned through all of this. Maybe, but not enough. And then I walked away. I heard later Ryan accepted a plea deal. Avoided major prison time but lost almost everything else. Career gone, licenses revoked, reputation destroyed. Emma moved to another state eventually. Fresh start, probably. As for me, I rebuilt slowly. Therapy helped. Time helped. Distance helped. But the biggest thing that helped was understanding something I wish more people realized. Betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. For months, I tortured myself wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't enough, how I missed the signs. But people who cheat with your best friend aren't responding to your failures, they're responding to their own emptiness. Healthy people leave relationships honestly. Healthy people don't build secret lives while smiling in your face. And revenge? Real revenge isn't destruction. Not really. It's survival. It's refusing to let someone else's selfishness turn you into something bitter and unrecognizable. That's the part movies never understand. In the end, I didn't destroy Ryan or Emma. They did that themselves. I just stopped protecting them from the consequences.